My dear friends, today I'll be discussing about the pathophysiology of restrictive cardiomyopathy. Restrictive cardiomyopathy is the least common type of cardiomyopathy. There are three types of cardiomyopathy, that is dilated cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy and restrictive cardiomyopathy. And this restrictive cardiomyopathy is the least common among others three cardiomyopathy. So least type of cardiomyopathy, and there are many risk factors, and out of this amyloidosis is the most common cause of restrictive cardiomyopathy. And from the word itself or term itself or terminology, that is restrictive cardiomyopathy, it indicates that there is some defect in heart muscle which leads to defective relaxation or restriction in the diastolic expansion of the heart, which may leads to heart failure in future. It is also called infiltrative cardiomyopathy because various infiltrative disease like sarcoidosis, amyloidosis may leads to restrictive cardiomyopathy. And it is also called constrictive cardiomyopathy because it is responsible for constriction of the heart. Heart cannot undergo diastolic expansion, so there is a constriction of the heart. That's why it is also called constrictive cardiomyopathy. Beside, it is also called obliterative cardiomyopathy also. So there are various terminology, and most commonly it is called restrictive cardiomyopathy because there is a defect in the heart muscle which leads to the restriction in the diastolic expansion of the heart, leading to defective cardiac output or fall in cardiac output, which ultimately involve a systemic manifestation. Now, this restrictive cardiomyopathy can also lead to heart failure in future. Initially, it starts with a diastolic dysfunction because of increased stiffness of the heart wall, but finally it may leads to systolic dysfunction also, and also leads to heart failure. So actually, in restrictive cardiomyopathy, there is stiffness of the wall of the heart muscle or cardiac myocyte. They become very stiff and difficult in relaxation, and because of this heart muscle cannot undergo expansion, and because of this they become failure to do diastolic recoil or diastolic relaxation, affecting the ventricular filling, and finally lead to systemic manifestation of the disease because of low cardiac output. Now today we will discuss about how the restrictive cardiomyopathy lead to various type of sign symptom of the disease, that is pathophysiology behind that. Now the heart muscle, uh, actually if you take a cross section of the heart, it consists of three layers, that is endocardium. Innermost layer is endocardium, then comes the myocardium, which is the middle part, and outermost part is known as epicardium, and outer part of the epicardium lies a membrane known as pericardial membrane or pericardium. Now if you take a cross section, the innermost layer is endocardium, the middle layer is myocardium. Now the restrictive cardiomyopathy, actually it is a disease of the heart muscle wall, or that is cardiac myocyte or myocardium of the heart. So heart, because of various pathology like infiltrative disease or glycogen storage disease, Niemann-Pick's disease, or because of Fabry's disease or sarcoidosis or amyloidosis, or because of various storage disease also, the heart muscle become stiff, and because of that it cannot undergo diastolic expansion, and because of that finally the pumping action of the heart may be hampered in later part of the disease. So initially the disease start with diastolic dysfunction, but they may hamper the systolic function also in the later part of the disease, and even it leads to heart failure. Now what is happening is that various infiltrative disease or causes or risk factors of the restrictive cardiomyopathy affect the heart wall muscle or myocardium, and by affecting that they cause a stiffness or stretchability is affected. So the stretchability of the heart or relaxing capacity or compliance of the myocardium is affected, and because of the loss in compliance, the heart wall stretchability is lost, and that's why heart muscle become very stiff. So as the heart muscle become very stiff, they cannot undergo diastolic expansion, and we know heart undergoes diastolic expansion or relaxation during the time of diastole, which is responsible for proper filling of ventricles, and that amount of blood that entered in the left ventricle or right ventricle during the diastole has to be pumped out during the systole. But because of the heart muscle stiffness, the heart cannot do ventricular diastole, and that's why there is an improper filling of ventricle and or lack of ventricular filling, or ventricular filling decreases, and because of that there is a decrease in end diastolic volume. And once the end diastolic volume decreases, or amount of blood at the end of diastole in the heart will decrease, it ultimately decrease the stroke volume. Stroke volume means amount of blood coming out per beat by each ventricle. So that is decreased, and because of decreasing in stroke volume, ultimately it decreases the cardiac output. And because of decreasing the cardiac output, the body heart cannot pump out the enough amount of blood so as to cover the metabolic needs of the whole body, and the systemic manifestation will be based on that. So this is the pathophysiology of restrictive cardiomyopathy. Now, the rhythmicity as well as contractility of the heart is normal. The stretchability or relaxing quality or recoiling quality or compliance, that is myocardial compliance, is hampered because of the infiltrative or glycogen storage disease or various type of risk factors or etiology affecting the heart muscle. The compliance is affected. Diastolic expansion is affected. Heart muscle cannot undergo diastolic expansion, but they can contract properly at early stage. So rhythmicity, electrical activity is normal. The heart rhythm is also normal. Beside, the contractility of the heart or anatropic state of the heart is also normal. But there is a defect in diastolic expansion, and because of that there is less ventricular filling, ultimately low end diastolic volume, and ultimately very less stroke volume, and because of that there is low cardiac output, and that is not enough to maintaining the circulation of the whole body. And the systemic manifestation as well as sign symptoms or clinical features of the restrictive cardiomyopathy is because of the low cardiac output. Now, restrictive cardiomyopathy, like constrictive pericarditis, is a diastolic dysfunction. But later on, as the disease complicates, the pumping action of heart, which was initially normal, may become abnormal. So later part of the disease, the systolic function can also be affected, and which leads to the defect in contractile capacity of heart or pumping action of the heart, and ultimately this may lead to heart failure also. So thus what I mean to say is that initially the disease may start with diastolic dysfunction, but in the final stage of the disease it may lead to heart failure also, where pumping action of the heart may be affected also. So this is the pathophysiology of the restrictive cardiomyopathy. And the various sign symptoms or clinical features of the disease, like shortness of breath, exercise intolerance, that is because of low cardiac output or inability of the heart to pump the blood in right volume.